In this photo deconstruction, I'm going to show you how I use 3 continuous lights to create this super saturated beauty image. Plus, I'm going to show you how one light acts as both a background and a fill light at the same time. Hey everybody, Lindsay Adler here, and I love super saturated, bold color. I use it all the time in my work, but whenever an image is based around color, I make sure I plan ahead and I communicate with my creative team. The hair, the makeup, the wardrobe, I want everybody to be able to contribute to this color and to the color theory of the image. So what I want to do today is I want to take you through the concept of this photograph, as well as the lighting and the post-processing and how I brought it to life. This image was actually created as part of one of my hands-on intensives workshops. The theme was exploring color, which is exactly what you can see in the resulting image. And this was sponsored and supported by Nanlite. All right, so for this shoot, I was actually inspired by the model Jasmine. I saw in her portfolio that in the past, her super short blonde hair had been dyed different colors. And I said, well, I never get the opportunity to do that, so let's do that with her. So I reached out to my wardrobe stylist, my hairstylist, my makeup artist, and I said, what I want you all to do is bring pink. I want super saturated fuchsias. I want this to be an image with really bold, popping colors. And so the wardrobe stylist got this beautiful reflective fuchsia top, and the makeup artist was able to give me this beautiful graphic pattern on the eyes. And my hairstylist was even able to give me a little bit of that pastel pink in the hair. That was not done in post, it was done in camera. And so you can see one of the most important things for me for getting really, eye-catching bold imagery is the preparation beforehand. I create mood boards or vision boards, inspiration images that I can provide to my team, and then they can show up on set with the things they need to give me something wow to put in front of my camera. So now that I have this beautiful model and the beautiful hair, makeup, wardrobe in front of me, now it is time to introduce the lighting to reinforce this concept. Now, one of the things I could do is I could have just gone totally monochromatic, just gone with pink background, pink light, pink fill. But what I decided to do was go for a slightly expanded color palette. And so the color palette, or the color theory that I used here, the color harmony, is called analogous. It's colors next to each other on the color wheel. And so I went from pink to purple to blue. And analogous colors have a very soothing, calming effect. They feel very, very united. But because I use saturated colors, it still is a very popping image. All right, so let's pop behind the scenes and see what I did for the lighting. All right, so what we have going on here are 3 different continuous lights, all Nan lights. We have a main light for her face, a background light, and then a fill light. So let me show you what each one is doing here. So first and foremost, I have a Nanlite Forza 500 with a beauty dish and a grid. That is the main illumination on her face. And the reason I chose that is because it would give me a really flattering quality of light, but the grid prevents the light from spilling and hitting the background or bouncing around the space. So it gives me flattering light with control. Then what I did is I added the background light. Now the background light I have here is a Nanlite Forza 500, and I put on it a magenta gel. I have it pointed really, really low. And you can actually see the effect of pointing it so low. It creates this beautiful gradient on the background. That is one of the trends that I've seen in the last year or so, is these beautiful gradients of color in fashion photography. So I wanted to incorporate that in my work, but of course in my own style. So pointing that magenta light really low gives me that super saturated magenta that fades to shadow. So here's where we come to our last light. I have a Nanlite Pavo tube. Nanlite Pavo tubes are these narrow tubes. They come in different sizes, so you can get a foot, 2 foot, 4 feet, I think even 8 feet, and they're full RGB, so you can change them to any color. And so I selected blue here, and I did so for a reason. Remember how I talked about the analogous color scheme? Well, I have the magenta in her clothing in the background. By using the blue, it would not only fill in the shadows on the shadow side of the face, but it would also kick onto the background. You can kind of see that in the top of the background here. At the top of the background, it would be pure blue, but where the blue mixed with the pink, it would give me purple. So that's what gives me the pink to purple to blue analogous color scheme in this image. And then I united the blue from the foreground and the background by having the blue being a fill light. So you can kind of see that in the final image again, right? So you can see the analogous color scheme. It's very blue at the top, purple in the middle, magenta at the bottom, and because I have a blue fill light, it is mixing the pink and the blue together, also giving me some purple. All right, so let's go back to the behind the scenes for a couple more things. So for this beauty image, I use the Canon R5 and the Canon RF 70-200 2.8 lens because it is a fantastic beauty lens. All right, now these are my camera settings. I use 1/400th of a second. I did that because I was using a longer lens and I wanted to make sure I didn't suffer from camera shake. When you're using continuous lights, one of the things you want to be aware of is that you don't have that fast pulse of light, that brief flash that you get from using strobes. When you're using just a strobe, a quick flash, it'll freeze your subject in place. You don't have to worry about motion blur. So continuous lights are just like they sound. They are on continuously. And so if you do have a little bit of camera shake, especially with a longer lens, you might have a softer blurry photo. So that's why I'm shooting at 1/400th of a second. Next, I'm shooting at ISO 1250. Most continuous lights are not going to be nearly as strong as your equivalent strobes. So shooting at a higher ISO is going to allow me to let more light in to achieve the correct exposure. And then lastly here, I was shooting at f4. Now the reason I was shooting at f4 is because this is a workshop and I know not everybody has a 2.8 lens, but if I were shooting this myself, I would actually go to 2.8 in order to use a slightly lower ISO. All right, so you can see the lighting here. Let's pop over to that final photo. This is the retouched image, but I want to show you what it looked like throughout the process of retouching. So this is what the image looked like straight out of camera, and I think it looks pretty good. She has great skin. It's absolutely beautiful. The lighting is really nice. The colors look poppy and saturated. I would be fine to show this and use this without retouching. But there are a couple things I did want to improve. So what I decided to do is I decided to desaturate the blue a little bit and brighten up my image. Now, technically, I think her skin maybe at this point looks maybe slightly overexposed, but I wanted the color to disappear from her skin. I didn't want to see the yellows or any of the reds. I wanted it to be pure white so that all you're focusing on is the analogous color scheme of the magenta, blue, and purple. Now, another thing that you'll notice is that when I lightened it up, it looks like I retouched her forehead. I didn't. Basically what I did is by desaturating the blues and then brightening it up, it just kind of smoothed it out a little bit. So that is still no retouching. So here's where we get to the retouching part of the equation. So this was my color grade and tone. And then this is my retouch. So you'll see a couple things going on. In the initial images, I actually found that I had shifted my subject a little bit too far to the left. So what I did is I did some content aware fill, and I extended the end of the canvas. So that's one of the things I did here. But you'll also notice that I lowered the shoulders. That makes somebody look a little taller, more confident, more elegant. And then one more thing. I did liquefy to even out her eyes just a little bit. When I look at her, this is not something I notice. It's not like, oh, it's a main feature. But I have her looking straight onto the camera, completely symmetrical. And so when you do that, our eyes are trained to see breaks and patterns. And when something isn't symmetrical, we look for symmetry. And so, yeah, if somebody's moving around talking to you, slightly turning their head, you would never notice it. But with her straight on, I thought it would be perhaps a little bit more flattering to even things out. Oh yeah, and then I didn't like, there was kind of a little pocket of yellow skin tone in the shadow area of her eye. So I evened that out as well. So this is what was in camera. This is what I did with color grading and post-processing. Again, I still think it would look beautiful in camera. All right, so the resulting image is one that I think has a lot of impact, but I wouldn't have been able to achieve that impact without all of the elements of the equation. The pre-planning, making sure that everybody brought something in the correct color scheme, as well as then reinforcing the color harmony, the color idea with the light choice. And then finally, perfecting it, dialing it in post-processing. All right, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this photo deconstruction. And if you want to join me for one of these intensive workshops, if you go to learnwithlindsay.com and you visit the workshop section, I do many of these every year, and there's small groups that allow you hands-on opportunity. So for example, all of the students were able to capture an image here with Jasmine. Also, if you want to see the gear that I used to create these images, all of them were nanlights, and I have links to them in the description below. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. Be sure to like, subscribe, and if you want to pick up some of this gear, be sure to visit adorama.com. See you next time.